Today is the 20th of November, 2021. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning. Real quick video. What they're not telling you about the Rittenhouse trial. A trial of this magnitude, you have 3 people that were killed. 2 people killed, 1 seriously injured. How come the families of these 3 so-called victims are not on TV, not in front of CNN, not at MSNBC? They're not on TV screaming and crying that the injustice was done for my poor innocent baby that were killed by this radical white supremacist, this radicalized white domestic terrorist. Where are the families of Rosenbaum, Groich, Clarker, and any other joker, the skateboard king? Where are the families? How come they're not on TV? How come they're not on TV screaming, this is not justice? You want to know why they're not on TV? I'm going to tell you why they're not on TV. Rosenbaum was a convicted rapist, pedophile, little boys. He liked little boys. The other joker, the other one got killed using the skateboard. And it's funny, you don't hear him mentioned, right? Do you know what his name is? I can't even tell you what his name is. We all know who Rosenbaum is. That's because Rosenbaum didn't have a weapon. See, you don't have to have a weapon to get killed in self-defense. You have to prove a case that you felt your life wasn't threatened. It's no different than if you were in a car and you were surrounded by a bunch of protesters and they're beating on the window and you run over them because you feared for your life, and you can prove you feared for your life in a court of law. And that's what this is. This whole trial is no different than that. So the guy that you don't hear about, that got his head clobbered, it was clobbering heads with a skateboard. You don't hear anything about that guy because you can use a skateboard as a weapon and kill somebody. But you don't hear that mentioned now, do you? The other guy that got his arm vaporized had a gun. So where are the families of these 3 individuals? They're not in the media's eye, are they? They're not getting in front of a camera screaming, my poor innocent children. I know one thing about Rosenbaum. When this all went down, I saw a quote from the family. We're not surprised this happened to him because he was a piece of shit. So you have a bunch of black people that are in Kenosha screaming about injustice because a white guy shot 3 white guys and killed 2 of them. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Have you ever seen anything like that? I haven't. It's news to me. A civilian, a white young man, civilian, kills 3 other white guys, and some of the black community is pissed off. So as I'm watching these people bitch and moan on the state in Kenosha, complaining, somebody's holding up a sign of the 3 victims of Rittenhouse, dressed like Superman. What's a freaking pedophile? These guys were freaking horrible human beings. They were so bad that their families aren't even talking about them on TV and telling everybody what a wonderful souls they were. What does that tell you about Black Lives Matter and Antifa? What does that tell you? See, what's going on, it's Black Lives Matter, Antifa are foot soldiers for a communist movement backed by the Democrat Party. Now, why do I say that? Because the Democrats support this kind of nonsense. They don't denounce Black Lives Matter. They don't denounce Antifa. And the liberal media celebrates these people. And then it is as plain as the nose on your face. These are communists. You don't think I'm lying? I'm not making this shit up. Look at their website. Look at their mission statements, particularly Black Lives Matter. Maybe they removed it. The 2 women that founded it said they are trained Marxists. What does that mean, trained? It means they are trained in the tactics of Bolsheviks that Vladimir Lenin used during the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 in Russia, where they killed thousands of people. Communism kills thousands of people who don't want to submit to it. That's what they do. We have a communist movement in this country, people. You wake up to it. The black community, I don't know what's wrong with it. They got their own issues that you can't fix. They have to fix it within themselves. Somewhere along the line, they have to recognize that whatever's going on in their neighborhood, they have to fix it. But this whole movement, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, is a communist movement connected to the Democrat Party in this country and to our media, because our media is pushing a narrative to brainwash. Now, this is to all the parents everybody that people are watching this, if you're my age, you probably have grandchildren by now. If your children accept these organizations and think these organizations are okay, you really failed. Because if you're my age, you should remember the horrors of communism. You should remember people trying to escape West Berlin, families, and getting shot. Or East Berlin. You should remember East Germany. You should remember when there was a wall dividing that. And what was on the other side of the wall, that people were desperate to get over to the other side. I know people, I have friends that escaped communist countries when they were children because their parents tied them up in a sheet and threw them over their shoulder and ran for their lives when the Soviets moved into to some of those countries. I remember people defecting during the Olympics. It always happened. And anybody that's my age, you should remember that. And if your children think that these organizations, Antifa and Black Lives Matter, are okay, you failed because you failed to teach the lessons that you should have seen as a child, or you should have been paying attention to, or your parents or your grandparents should have been teaching you about. But no. And maybe I'm like this because I am the result of a World War II vet who saw the horrors of the war and who understood, who was over in Europe and understood what the Russians were doing as they were progressing further west. Now, I don't mean for this to be a crazy rant, but what it comes down to is what they aren't telling you speaks volumes from this trial. You have the right to defend yourself. And I want to say this. The dumbest thing this Rittenhouse kid did was decide he was going to go out there and try to be a good citizen. I think in his own naive way, he really thought he was going out there to do the right thing. And I believe, and the evidence shows that, which you're not seeing unless you watch the trial, unless you saw some of the video footage of him putting out fires and he brought that weapon to defend himself. But at the same time, he put that weapon strapped on made him a target. Once they figured out that he wasn't one of them. See, if he was one of the Antifa people, they would have left him alone. But because he wasn't, they came after him. I have a real simple way of dealing with it. Unless it's your property, unless you have an invested interest in your home and your family, don't worry about protecting somebody else. Don't worry about. Let them burn those places down to the ground. Let the lynch mob, the Frankenstein villagers, the Leninists, the Stalinists, the Maoists, the Marxists, let them burn the place down. But what you have to do as an individual is not put up with a media that promotes this shit, and do not have to put up with politicians that promote this shit. We got an election coming up next year. Vote these sons of bitches out of office. Vote those worthless clowns out of office. Every one of them that supports Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Vote them out. These are not good organizations, folks. They aren't. Look at their mission statements. And all of you liberals who support that nonsense, you don't even read what their mission statement is. You believe in that bullshit of that whole bullshit of equity and equality and bullshit. Nobody's equal. Some people are always going to be better than the other. Some people are smarter. Some people are stronger. Some people are faster. That's the way it is. You're not going to get equality. But what we should be more concerned about is our freedoms. Because these assholes want to take away your freedoms. That's really what it comes down to. And the one thing, they managed to take just about all of them away in one way or the other, but they haven't taken away the Second Amendment. This is why this was really a big deal. Because part of this has to do with the Second Amendment. And when are you exercised, when can you use the proper force to defend yourself? You know, there's an old saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Right? This guy came, the other guys came with knives. This guy had a gun. So I don't fault this guy. And I think the jury did what it had to do, and you know, that's what it was. But the people that are out there moaning and groaning and bitching and moaning, the real thing here is, What are the victims' families saying? You can have all these other monsters complaining about it, but they made a superhero out of a pedophile. They made a superhero out of a pedophile. What does that tell you? It's a joke. Antifa, Black Lives Matter is a joke. Read between the lines, pay attention, because no one's thinking about this. No one's thinking about this. Where are the families of the victims? Well, how come they're not screaming on 60 Minutes? How come they're not on Anderson Cooper? Why aren't they on CNN and everywhere on MSNBC screaming, oh, my poor baby, he was such a good boy. He raped 3 little boys. Where are the families? You know what? There's an old saying. You don't have to speak, never speak well of yourself. Let others speak well of you. If you got good character, other people are going to speak well of you. You don't have to tell the world what kind of wonderful person you are. If you're a wonderful person, other people will speak for you. Where are the spokespersons for these assholes? There are none. Not even their own family will come forward and say anything good about them. This poor kid, this Rittenhouse and his entire family, they got to move. They got to change their name. But what they should do is sue the shit out of the media, just like Covington Crosskidder and a Covington kid did. He got $250 million out of CNN alone. And I promise you, the lawyers that worked that case, you can guess whose door they're knocking on. And they should. Because maybe if they lost their ass, maybe if the media lost their ass enough times, they would stop being propagandists for the Communist Party. That's all I got to say about this nonsense. Till next time.